Hi, I'm Mukund Parthasarathy, and I lead R&D for Dow's packaging and specialty plastics business. On behalf of Dow, I'm proud to bring you this SACE Pro seminar series. It has been great partnering with SACE to provide employees in Dow and other companies with wonderful opportunities to connect with professionals that are passionate about developing Asian heritage talent. Before we get started, I would like to share with you a quick video highlighting some of the accomplishments from our employee resource group called the Asian Diversity Network. I thank you for attending, and I sincerely hope that you enjoy the series.
Good afternoon, SACE fam. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. This is the SACE Pro webinar series. I'm Parag Madawar, the Director of Professional Programs here at SACE. For those of you who have never been to one of these events before, let me give a little bit of background for what we do here at SACE Pro. So what we see as what we're trying to tackle, the problem is that Asians, data shows that we are 50% less likely to get promoted to middle management versus our Caucasian counterparts, which creates a Asian leadership gap of untapped potential, both for individuals, but also for the organizations that we are working for. So our research, our theory is that there are four basic reasons, four basic factors: lack of political and organizational savvy, a cultural deference to authority, ineffective communication and influencing skills, and an aversion to risk-taking. And these are generalizations. It's not a one-size-fits-all, but these are trends across our 49 nations that we represent. These are trends culturally relative to the Western world. Now, there's some challenges in tackling these that lead to some key barriers to progress. The first being just awareness. With model minority myth, with all sorts of other scenarios that have occurred, to an extent, even what I've shared with you so far is not very well known. So step one is really just awareness that there is actually a numerical challenge, and there are reasons behind that. Number two is, how do you tackle it? These barriers that we face. Our belief is that you have to train the leadership skills with the cultural context so that the material lands. But thirdly, in reality, for most of you coming from organizations, is that, let's face it, Asian development is often a lower priority for organizations. There aren't as many funds to go around, and often sometimes we are our own worst enemy there. We feel reluctant to even raise our hand to begin with, to get attention, what we may feel is unnecessary or standing out attention to this issue. So what we do here at SACE Pro, our solution is to bring together now well over 250 ERG leaders from well over 100 Asian, well over 100 organizations. We pull them together and create the scale necessary to develop and deliver programs, from signature programs like our national convention, which occurred a few months ago. We've got virtual conferences as well, including a women's conference, which will occur in April. Then we have some year-round programs, including this webinar series. So this webinar series is an ongoing free series. If any of you paid, then you need to figure out where that money went, because it didn't come to us. And we feature our training partners. Or interviews with executives. Happens about once a month. The recordings will be posted on our website shortly afterwards, and you can just follow us on LinkedIn or follow our page to be informed of what's coming up. Logistically, kind of ground rules: brief presentation from our training partners, about 20 minutes. Then there'll be a moderated Q&A between me and the trainer, and you absolutely enter your questions into the chat. We do aim for this to be very much a conversation on the content to make it easy to engage with, depending on how much you are able to be present with us today. So with that, without further ado, I want to bring up our presenter this time is Christina Farinacci-Roberts of Head, Heart, Hands Consulting. I did get the sequence right, I believe. 3 H's in a row, you got a lot of iterations there. We can probably figure out the math. It's probably 3 factorial, so that's 6.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I just nerded myself out.
You're in good company, right? It's the Society for Asian Scientists and Engineers, so
exactly.
No one's faulting you right now.
Someone will let me know if I got that math wrong, if it's actually not 3 factorial to be able to do that. But we'll be talking about discovering your Ikigai, walking boldly in your purpose. So with that, let me stop sharing, and Christina, take it away.
All right. Well, first of all, I just want to thank everyone for showing up today. I know you could be a lot of places right now, but you're here. I am going to be focusing our talk today on Discover Your Ikigai, walking boldly in your purpose. We're going to be learning about how do you marry your personal essence with your professional excellence to pursue a more passion-filled, purpose-driven life that provides a foundation for flourishing. And I'll just give a quick little bio. I always like to start off by saying I am the proud daughter of a Korean immigrant tiger mom and an Italian-American veteran dad. I am a first-generation college graduate who went on to become one of the youngest New York City high school principals, and then eventually founded an award-winning education and equity consultancy called Head, Heart, Hands Consulting. I always like to say, I think it's pretty cool that I was able to become one of the youngest high school principals in New York City, but it's cooler because my mom grew up dirt poor on a farm. She didn't get to go to school past the 3rd grade. And so for me, I pursued a career in education and wanting to address different inequities with the desire to ensure that my students' zip codes didn't determine their destinies in the ways that I felt like my mom's had. And so I was a principal for 10 years. And then 6.5 years ago, my mother was diagnosed with the beginning stages of Alzheimer's. Knock on wood, to God be the glory. It's been a very slow progression, and she's as healthy and happy as I could want her to be. My son was almost 2 at the time. And so what I was feeling was that pressure from the sandwich generation of having, an aging parent that I needed to be able to be available for and care for. And we all know, as children of Asian parents, like that's not up for debate, right? And I had this young child, and so I went to my board and I said, you're gonna have to find a replacement. I don't have another job lined up. I don't have a plan B. I do still have a mortgage for which I am the primary breadwinner for. And so that's the genesis of my entrepreneurial journey. Had a nice thriving business for a few years until the pandemic hit, and literally my business went to 0 in a weekend. That is not hyperbole. And that's when I wound up actually partnering with my best friend since 2nd grade. She's a former corporate health and wellness executive, and we teamed up to start W.I.D.E Dynamic Dialogues. It's our joint venture, which stands for Wellness, Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. And we integrate these 4 things that are normally siloed to promote greater individual and organizational flourishing. So that's a little bit about me and my journey. Hopefully there was something in there that can resonate with you and can connect. And because, Parag mentioned that as Asians, sometimes we don't like to speak up. We don't like to share our story. We want to kind of stay under the radar. part of why I share so much. Maybe for some you're like, that's TMI, but it's because we connect when we share, and people's stories, people are moved by stories. And so I hope that this serves as an example of, like, you don't have to take an hour to tell your story, but there are little pieces that you can reveal that you feel comfortable with to bring about that connection. Okay, now it's the educator in me that wants to kind of start off today and actually start with enduring understandings instead of what I would call the objectives, right? Because if you do not get anything else from me today, I hope you will leave with these five ideas or these understandings. The first is that you are a human being, not a human doing. So who you are determines what you do, not the other way around. And I think, again, because I'm amongst friends and family here, right? Many of our Asian cultures really put a lot on our identities and our worth being tied to our accomplishments or our productivity. And so I really hope that sits with you. Second is that you are your why and not your what. So you're defined by your purpose and not your achievement. Again, I'm not trying to downplay how great it is to get that title or that promotion or that salary, but we are so much more than the what, right? It's the purpose that we possess and that we pursue, and the impact that we make as a result that is so much more significant. Third is this idea that you've been gifted with unique talents and a calling. So what you do with them is your gift back to source, however you define source and the world. I think something that I like to always emphasize is this notion that there's no one else on the planet like us who has our same lived experiences, our same learned expertise, and our same legit essence of who we are. And so understanding that unique combo is what uniquely positions us to make our mark in the world. Next, I want to say that you are worthy of the life you desire and that you have a birthright for love, joy, peace, and prosperity. I think sometimes, again, we don't pursue certain things because we actually don't believe that we are worthy to either pursue them and achieve them. And so I hope today's session helps you to eliminate that type of mind trash. And then lastly, that you can create and have a hashtag life by design, right? So your dreams were placed in you for you to manifest. I truly believe this, that, if you have that inkling inside of you, there is a path being created for you if you're brave enough to take that first step. Okay, so enough about me. You don't need to use the QR code because we actually were able to get the Zoom poll. So Jessica, whenever you're ready, I want to hear from you because I want this to be interactive and I want you to see how what we're going to talk about today can help you along your journey. So I want you to, in the Zoom poll, be able to answer the degree to which you feel these statements resonate with you, right? So the first is that I know my deeper purpose. The second is that I am able to regularly leverage my passions, gifts, and purpose in my current profession or business. And then thirdly, that I feel a push and pull between my personal life and my work life. So if we're able to start that poll, that would be great.
Are you able to see the polls?
I can see the poll. Yeah, now I
I went
can.
ahead and launched it. I
Thank
think
you.
it came up. And there are 3 questions in there.
Yes, thank you. So it looks like 118 of us are live right now, and the first person put in their answer. So as people are completing this, I'll give you, like a minute or so. I know my deeper purpose, right? Sometimes part of what we're going to be exploring today is what is that deeper purpose? Because so much of people in general, but again, I'm going to go back to our Asian upbringing. There are so many shoulds, right? That you should do this, right? That you're obligated to do this. And so sometimes that can kind of quiet this sense of what a deeper purpose is. Second, we have I'm able to regularly leverage my passions, gifts, and purpose in my current profession or business. So sometimes our true passions and purpose are not fully aligned to the work that we're currently doing. Sometimes they are, that's wonderful. And so it's okay, no matter where you fall on the spectrum, we're going to talk about how you can still achieve your Ikigai. And then thirdly, I wanted to get a sense of how many of you feel this push and pull between your personal life and your work life. Like it's almost like you're compartmentalizing the two, and you're maybe one way over here and a different way over there. So, oh, I love this. We're having great participation rate already at 80%. Now, I don't want to, you know, trigger anyone right now, but I did do a talk for NAP Toronto not too long ago on the same topic, and we did have 100% participation rate in the polls. I've never had that in my entire life of doing live webinars, and so
Yeah,
we're at
I don't
85.
know. We're in solid B territory right here. So we might be inching up toward a B plus.
Yes, if we can get to 90%, maybe, that's at least the A- territory. I know if you had a mom like me, she would ask why A- and not A or A plus, depending on the grading system. But I'm gonna just see what we have so far. So it's looking like quite a few of you, over half of you, trending right now at 56%. You feel like you do know your deeper purpose. There's about 25% of you, right? A quarter of you are kind of like neither agree nor disagree, like kind of, sort of, not totally. And then there's a little less than a fifth of you, right? 19% of you currently that feel like, you know what, I actually am not even really sure what my deeper purpose is. So hopefully some of the things that we're going to cover today are going to help you on that journey. Second, we have, I am able to regularly leverage my passions, gifts, and purpose in my current profession or business. So let's see. Again, a little over 50% of you, about 52% of you are saying that there is an alignment between what you do for work and what you're passionate about and what you feel your purpose is. It looks like there is about not quite a third, 31% of you are sort of in that in-between territory, and then about 17% of you are not really feeling that alignment at all. And then lastly, that idea of a push and pull between personal and professional. This is actually shockingly fairly high, or I should say it's not shocking because it's the opposite direction. 65% of you, more than half of you, do feel that tension between the two worlds. And another almost a fifth of you, 19%, are like, yeah, I kind of feel it some days, maybe some days I don't. And then there's a smaller minority, 16% of you are actually like, no, that push and pull, I don't feel. I have that work-life harmony. So again, thank you so much for participating. Oh, it's 89%, so close. And so
Christina, I wonder how much, especially with that third one, I would imagine that the pandemic and shifting to remote work has made those numbers different. I've heard from people that they actually feel they now have greater freedom, which has given them more flexibility in their personal life and work life, and how to balance the two or have them in harmony. I've also heard it's really hard to turn the computer off.
I was just going to say, the work that I've done with companies, we actually have seen that, ironically, this more flexible working conditions where, okay, you don't have set hours or whatever. Now, before there were clear boundaries that were like, on my way to work, I'm getting ready to like get into the thing. And then on my way home, I'm decompressing. And now those boundaries are really blurred. So you're right. It requires a lot more intentionality on the part of the individual, but there are certainly things that the employer can also be doing to try and help to promote those healthy work-life harmony, boundaries, all of that good stuff. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so now getting into the good stuff, like what are we actually going to learn today? So today we're going to understand the Japanese concept of Ikigai and how it can serve as a tool for deeper reflection and greater results. Secondly, we want to answer the 4 major Ikigai questions and determine how they can help you pursue your own passion-filled, purpose-driven life. Next, we're going to explore those 4 Ikigai intersections and how they can provide insights on your mission, vocation, profession, and passion. They don't have to be mutually exclusive, but we're going to show the relationship. Next, we're going to also learn the elements of the whole soul leadership model and the frameworks that result in greater individual and collective flourishing. That's going to be really just a tiny general highlight. And then lastly, we're going to identify your top priorities and next steps that will help you to take aim and lead with greater agency, confidence, and ease. So I like to start off by saying, okay, let's figure out, let's contextualize what we're talking about today, right? Which is the idea of how past experiences coupled with emerging developments impact our lives and well-being. In 2020, we had what I like to refer to as this trifecta, right, of a global pandemic, an economic downturn, and a slew of social injustices that, of course, were not new, but new to it being on a sort of national platform and highlighted and even globally. And so what that did is things like the Great Resignation or quiet quitting or people being louder, customers being louder with voting with their dollars and employees with their feet, right? It required us to kind of pause and say, there was this big push initially to say, like, we need to get back to business as usual. And then it was like, but was business as usual actually working for us? And, a lot of us, if you had somebody who you lost to COVID, that is an impetus for you to reflect on like what's truly important is, it's got to be maybe more than my paycheck. You also had with the economic downturn, some folks were laid off, right? You didn't have an option. So you were thinking about other career choices. Maybe some of you started businesses. And then I think with the social injustices, there was an opportunity for a deeper level of empathy for what so many people have experienced and seeing where those connection points are. So all this to say, I think that it's not shocking to me that Discover Your Ikigai is quickly becoming one of my most requested signature talks because people are really striving for meaning making. And so I just wanted to kind of root that in today's conversation. And so now getting a little more into sort of priming us for this Ikigai discussion. I created, or rather I should maybe say refined my whole soul leadership model when all of this was happening. And what I wanted to do was create a leadership model that was really rooted in being more human-centered and holistic. And so I came up with these 4 elements of soul. And the first one is satisfaction. And this is about increasing your pride, joy, and fulfillment in the work that you do and the life that you live. And I think this is important for us as Asians because I know I was raised by a mom who really did not consider satisfaction, joy, things like doing something purely for the sake of the joy that it brings me or doing it because it fulfills me. She has a very utilitarian approach to everything. And where there are strengths in that, there are some liabilities in that. And I think it's important for us to make sure that we are choosing what we want to embrace from the cultures and the values that our families and our ethnicities have placed before us. Next, we have optimism. And this is really about improving your outlook on what's possible and the capacity to rise and excel, right? If we know that obstacles, failures, mistakes, they're inevitable. And so if you don't have a deep sense of hope and what is possible in the future, we're not going to be able to inspire our teams to do the good work that we need them to do. Next, we have Uberty, which I'm a former English teacher and a former English major, and I did not know what this word meant until I was looking up U words that would fit my acronym. And I was very pleasantly surprised to learn that it means abundance. It's an antiquated word for abundance that I'm reviving back into the lexicon. And this element is really about embodying a spirit of abundance and assuming there's provision for all that's needed. Parag mentioned that part of why sometimes leadership doesn't get pursued or doesn't get achieved in within Asians is that fear factor. It's that scarcity mindset of like, what happens if this doesn't work out? Or, what if I make the wrong decision, as if things are fatalistic? And it's this understanding that like, listen, there's abundance in the world. There's always a place for our gifts to be used, even if whether it's we walk away or we are laid off, It's embodying that spirit of abundance. And then lastly, this idea of love, right? So igniting people's passion and purpose and infusing it with the most universal element of the human condition, right? All with this goal of flourishing and achieving greater freedom, fulfillment, and flow. Now, I had a lot of people in the beginning say, I don't think you can say love or soul in a school or in a corporate setting. And, maybe pre-pandemic, there were more of those places, but I truly believe that post 2020, post pandemic, post economic, well, we're kind of still in the economic downturn, but even amidst the social injustices, people are really embracing a more holistic, human centered approach because they recognize that even just the workforce that's coming through, that's coming up, they are not interested in the old school ways of being. And if we're not attuning ourselves to this next generation that is more holistic and human centered in their own ways of being and living, then we're going to lose out. So I'm not going to spend time here explaining a ton about the frameworks, but what I just explained was a model, and that gets very esoteric. Here is where we operationalize the personal flourishing, which is represented by the optimized framework, and then the professional flourishing, which is represented by the Ascend framework. And so today we're diving deep into the personal side of establish your purpose. With that optimized framework, it's about high level. It's activating, cultivating, aligning a sound mind, a strong body, and a sage spirit that allows you to make sure you're in an optimal state of being where you can show up whole and intentional and energized, and you possess this peace and joy that kind of transcends circumstance. So when you go into the Ascend framework where we're in the work setting, we're in an optimal state of being, and we're not defining ourselves simply by, again, the titles or the what's in my bank account, all of these things. On the Ascend framework, where we're talking about professional flourishing, this is going to be achieved by enlightening the head, engaging the heart, and empowering the hands. This is intentionally to be used both for individual leaders and the organization as a whole. And the idea here is that, of course, as humans, we are a combination of head, heart, hands, and so are the organizations that we're a part of. However, oftentimes, we have default modes. So if you're a head person, you're very much data, theory, research, stats, numbers. If you're a heart person, it's not that you don't do those things or can't do those things, but that's not what drives you. You got to know what's the personal transformation, what's the community impact, how does this improve my team dynamics so we can achieve the mission and vision. And then lastly, if you're a hands person, you're kind of like, yeah. What is the tactical support that needs to be in place to shift from theory to practice and be able to implement this initiative? And so while we're not going to dive really deep here, I want you to keep that in mind as leaders, whether you're a leader of one, you're leading a team, or you're leading a whole organization. How are you setting your people up to synergize head, heart, hands? Sometimes this can even look like departmentally. I've been in places where finance team, generally very heady, HR, very heart, tech people, very hands. Then when we bring everybody together, everybody's looking at the other person like, they're wacky, when really it's just they have different ways of entering the work. But the reality is we need all three to be synergized and working together to really propel that progress and advance that, accelerate that advancement. So I don't know if you want to touch anything here. We can keep moving and grooving. All right, so now here is the meat and potatoes of why we're here. If you if you are not familiar with the Japanese concept of Ikigai, really it's roughly translated in it's your reason for living, reason for getting up in the morning. It's sort of your life's purpose, if you will. And it's based on these 4 core questions, right? Of what do you love? What are you good at? What can you be paid for? And what does the world need? And I sort of recoined these questions as your 4 zones of joy, genius, income, and impact. And in a perfect world, right, we would be doing work that is at the intersection of all 4 of these things. And if you're thinking about the answers to those questions and starting to do a sort of a comparison chart, right? A Venn diagram of whether this is what your work's life looks like, don't feel bad. I would say that the majority of people don't get to have what I consider very blessed to have. I do believe in my business. And even when I was a principal, I was in my 4 zones. But the reality is a lot of people don't have all 4 things happening. here's the good news. Ikigai says we don't have to get our Ikigai just from what we do from 9 to 5 or 7 to 7, whatever your workday looks like, right? This is about figuring out, okay, what parts does my work touch upon? And then what am I not tapping into? And how do I intentionally carve out spaces to make that happen? And I'll just give like a real quick example. Perhaps you are an accountant right now. You were always great at math. And you enjoyed it. You know, it's not, maybe it doesn't like completely, you wake up like dying to look at spreadsheets, but you know, you generally enjoy, you like your colleagues, you're getting paid a salary that, you know, kind of subsidizes the lifestyle that you want to live. But maybe you have this deep passion for music. You love to sing. You realize you're not going to be the next Beyonce and you're okay with that. So what do? Maybe you join a band, like where you're just gigging on the weekends. You're not doing it for the money. You're doing it because it allows you to express yourself in some way. And maybe every summer you volunteer for 2 weeks at this summer camp where you're teaching kids how to write music or play guitar or whatever the thing is. But that would be an example of you saying like, I don't need to try to quit my job and just pursue singing because that is a passion of mine, but you have an identified way, an outlet that you are channeling that passion, if that makes sense. So sometimes, even though I think those 4 core questions are great, it can be overwhelming. They're sort of very broad. And so what I've done is I've shared some sub questions that you can think about. And I forgot to say this at the beginning. At the end, there's a survey that you can share your email. And if you want a high level summary of everything that's here, so you don't have to be like writing down notes or taking pictures, and you can just be really present in this moment, feel free to relax because you can get this. So the first question under what do you love is 1, what would you do for a living if money were no object, right? Or the second question could be, what do you enjoy doing when you have free time? And the third question is, what do you tend to always want to learn more about? Those are 3 questions that I think can help you to figure out what do you love. Because as weird as it may sound, I think a lot of us actually have forgotten what we love because we are consumed in our jobs. All of a sudden we're parents. I mean, as the parent right now of an 8-year-old son who is literally in every sport known to man, like I can go 7 days a week and not have 3 seconds to myself if I don't intentionally carve that out and pursue those things. Second, we have the what are you good at, right? So some questions you can ask yourself. One is, what did you excel in at school with ease, right? That's sort of tapping into that zone of genius. Second is, what have you become an expert in over the years? Thinking about like, sometimes things are learned versus just you being naturally good at them. And third is, what do others consider you the go-to person for? And what I want to encourage you when you're thinking about what you're good at, I think most times we'll immediately default to what are we good at professionally. But I really want to encourage you to give yourself permission to ask, what are you good at? Period. Are you an excellent baker, even if you're a research scientist? Like, I want to know about that. I want you to think about that. Maybe you're just like, you're like, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a licensed therapist, but everybody comes to me because I'm a great listener. I'm a good problem solver. Like, be really broad. Maybe you are really great at styling yourself. Like you're a fashionista, even though that has nothing to do with your job, right? So be broad in thinking about that. Next, we have what can you be paid for? So first, obviously, question is, what do you have a degree and or certificate in, right? That's going to be the easiest way to get paid. Second, what do you have an extreme talent in that solves a problem? So sometimes you might have something that, again, is not something you went to school for, but if you maybe just love, again, I'll go back to the baking. Maybe you're just really good at baking and you love baking, and there's all these people I knew a girl who literally started a business during the pandemic, a cookie company that went viral and national. And it was just a hobby she had, and originally just was sending cookies to people and then just selling them locally, having a pickup. And then it blew up. So you never know where things are going to go. And then the third question is, what do you have a lived experience in or as that can be leveraged. So sometimes it's not about the degree that you have. Maybe it's just the fact that one of my clients that I have on my entrepreneurial consulting, she is a immigrant who has worked at all of the major tech companies, and she's like a great project manager, and she wants to teach other people on how they can advance despite, not being a citizen here, or not, just navigating different things. And she can position herself both B2C with just getting individual clients, but she could actually go back to all those tech companies that she's worked for before and say, hey, I have a way of helping you to get those diversity numbers up, or to get more innovation happening, because we're going to, leverage this talent pool a little bit more. So again, thinking broadly. And then lastly, what does the world need? There's so many things the world needs, right? So some sub questions: what causes are you most interested in or moved by? For some people it's the animals, other people it's babies, other people it's elderly, people who have cancer, whatever the thing is. Think about a second question is, what volunteer experiences have you gravitated towards? Some people really love, working at the soup kitchen or working with refugees. And then lastly, what is one global or societal problem that you would like to see solved in your lifetime, right? And so that could be something. And again, you might not switch jobs or even industries, but maybe this will just be like, okay, I'm committing to once a month, I volunteer with this particular org. It makes me feel good because I feel like, in my everyday job, I don't know how much of a global impact I'm having in this bigger social challenge, but here's a way for me to feel like I'm still contributing to the world.
I thank you for running through that, because that was, whenever I see the Ikigai, that's my first thing is like, somebody still has to sweep the floor. Somebody still has to clean the bathroom. Somebody's still got to work at McDonald's. Not everybody can be doing, it's just not feasible for everybody to have a vocation that matches, their passion and their perfect skill set and so forth. There's still some crappy jobs that still need to be done. And so I think your idea, or what you're sharing here, is like, look at it from the total. Also matches that first piece you were talking about, of human being versus human doing. Our and us being, we see ourselves as a reflection of specifically what our job title is. And in fact, even here in the West, when you meet somebody, first question is often, oh, what do you do?
What do you do?
Right? And I've heard in different cultures, in different, not in the States at least, but that entry question is different. But certainly when I introduced, my wife to my parents or to my extended family, their very first question was, what does she do? And like really penetrating to try and understand like what level of achievement she's reached and whatnot. And I was finally able to get them off my back when I explained to them how many degrees she has. So, but and so certainly with the Asian context, there's that kind of an extra emphasis on this. So that made me feel like, okay, wait, this is kind of a conflict. So I like that you've explained that. No, really think about it in the sum total. Is the idea then that if by tackling these other issues with
other outlets,
is that what brings balance then? Is that the idea?
Yes, I think this is where there's no one way, right? This is so determined by your individual vision for yourself, your values, your goals, your priorities. So, for some, they really are attached. And I'm saying this without judgment. Some people really truly do feel like it is their duty to fulfill their parents' desires for the work portion. So it's like, I went to med school because my parents wanted me to be a doctor. And there are some days that I really wish I could quit the profession, but I feel like it's my duty to do that. And who is it for anybody to say that you prioritizing that as your top value makes you less than because you're not? No, you can do that. But then, because we don't want you to live a life of quiet desperation, what are the other ways that you can intentionally channel other passions and other purposes outside of the time that you're being a doctor. So I don't ever want to make it seem like, again, you got to quit your job tomorrow or you got to change industries or feel. It's like you get to choose. Now, some people will get through this session and they will have a come to whoever you believe in moment where it's like, dang, I actually don't know if I want to keep going in the direction that I'm going. And I think I do want to change paths. And that also doesn't have to be instantaneous, right? We can take small steps to start exploring and playing with different things. Because guess what? Sometimes the grass isn't greener. Now, I didn't happen to pursue entrepreneurship in that way. I do know people who are like, I'm done. I'm going to go over here. And it's like, guess what? Entrepreneurship, it has its own set of challenges and hardships. And for me, I'm always going to say this. Everything to some degree is hard. You get to choose your hard. So that's, to me, this is so rooted in choice and sovereignty. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. It makes things a lot cleaner.
Awesome. And so now we're going to get into looking at, that these 4 core questions that Ikigai poses offers this opportunity to reflect on the relationships that exist between the answers, right? So by considering the questions in the diagram in pairs, we can better determine a potential mission, passion, profession, and vocation, right? That allows us to live out our purpose. And so at the intersection of what you love and what you're good at, that tends to be what your passion is. At the intersection of what you're good at and what you can be paid for very often is your profession, right? Now, if you are getting paid for something and it's what the world needs, that is more of a vocation, right? This calling. And then lastly, what does the world need and what do you love? When you put those together, that's more like your mission. I want to be clear that these are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Like, again, in a perfect world, to me, if you can be doing something you're good at, get paid for it, and do something that's good for what the world needs, like that's a pretty sweet spot, right? And so this is just an opportunity to think about how much of these intersections does my current work allow me to have fulfilled in pursuing my Ikigai. And again, there's no judgment. Think of it more as a reflection tool versus an evaluative tool. Like, oh my gosh, I'm only at 12% Ikigai with my job. It's okay. Like, we can figure out whatever percentage you're at, there's always a way to counter it with other things or to make moves and shifts that will be more in alignment with your full Ikigai.
Is there we got a question from the audience.
Sure.
For where 3 of them overlap, is there a term for those by any chance?
Not that I'm familiar with, but there could be. To me, though, I don't have a term for it, but like when I work with other entrepreneurs in my entrepreneurial consulting, I have them go through this exercise, and I'm like, if your business is not built around at least the intersection of 3 of them, then I think you're ultimately going to build a business that feels more like a prison than, a paradise. So I don't have a technical term for that, but I do think it's a sweet spot to be in to have your the work that you do be at the intersection of at least 3.
Wonderful.
Okay. All right. So now it's your turn. We're going to do another poll here. And we just have some deeper reflection questions. So the first one I want you to think about is, do you see how your personal, oh no, wait, I think that's the feedback survey that just popped up. So for the reflection questions, do you see how your personal mission connects to your organizational mission? If you've not done this before, I would strongly encourage you to create your own personal mission statement and then use that as kind of like a litmus test for all the other things, whether it's your job, a volunteer organization, whatever it may be, to say, like, where are the intersections of my personal mission and this other mission? The second question that we are looking at here is, do you know what your interests are and do you have an outlet for them? So example, a hobby or a side hustle. I joked earlier that like sometimes I think literally there are people that are going to be on this this session right now and saying, I don't know what my interests are, because I honestly am just I've been in survival mode for so long. I can't think of it. Again, fortunately, I feel like I'm not one of those people. I love karaoke. That is what you will find me doing whenever I have a spare moment. Doesn't even have to be with other people. I have a whole setup at my house. I do things for my own sanity in terms of like physical fitness, like I CrossFit, I yoga, I run. I joke that like I'm not a runner. I'm a person who runs. Right. And like I do the CrossFit. I'm definitely not winning any, Olympic awards in it, but I know the things that fill my cup, and I make it a point to pursue them as much as humanly possible. Third is, does your current career or business exist at that intersection of profession and vocation? Because I think that's a really sweet spot to be. I accidentally hit minimize, so I can't see what the results are, but whenever you're ready to share them, you can share them. One question that's not in the poll, because it's more open-ended, is I want you to ask yourself, what shifts can you begin to make that will bring you closer to experiencing your Ikigai? And I think it's also like, notice I said, a shift. It's not necessarily a huge, we're going from one extreme to the other. Figure out what you feel comfortable with, dip the toe. I mean, if you're feeling compelled and called to like jump head first into something, like by all means, but it truly can just be one step at a time, and bringing that greater consciousness to it.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close in a
Okay, cool.
We'll give it 10 seconds. So 10, 9,
8, 7,
6,
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A little preview for the upcoming ball drop, right?
That's right. So 70%, that's a C. That's definitely an Asian F minus, but
it's okay. It's all right. We're getting along. It's closer to closing time, right?
yes.
And so did it have, are you able to share the results on this?
Here we go.
Okay, great. Perfect. So it looks like, yeah, so there's, interesting. So there's actually more of you who are on the lesser of a connection of that alignment, right? So there's, what is it, 33%? So just about a third of you are like, it's a little touch and go there. Whereas about 27% of you are like, yeah, no, I see that personal and professional mission sort of being very aligned. And then not quite 40% of you are like, yeah, I see a little bit, maybe not totally. Then you have, with how many of you actually know your passions and then actually are doing something with them. This is a bit higher, right? So that's better. That's 31%. But again, there's about 32% of you that feel like you honestly don't even know. And so I don't want that to make you feel bad. I think this is a pretty, what do you call that? The bell curve is pretty even here. So you're certainly not alone, no matter what one you fall into. And again, so maybe it's your interests and your hobbies and your passions. That's going to be your first step for you. It's just kind of inviting yourself to explore new things again, or try to like even ask your best friend, like, do you remember what I used to love to do, or like what we used to do together, to get some of those ideas. And then lastly, in terms of how many of you feel like you are at that good intersection of where the profession and vocation, right? What you're good at, what you can be paid for, what does the world need? It looked like, what is it? Okay, so almost half of you, right? You're at 49%. Or am I reading that right? Hold on.
Oh, we didn't get a choice 5 in there, but yeah.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Anyway, you know where you fall. So that's what's important. I think hopefully these reflection questions give you a sense of what your next steps might look like, if that makes sense. Okay. And then, all right, so I'm going to make some connections really quick to what you can be doing in terms of your work. And then I'm also going to add a little bonus for any of you who are part of ERGs or leaders of ERGs. So this is connecting the dots, how you can enhance your Ikigai. So one, I want you to think about how can you discover or rediscover and pursue your passions. Second, I want you to think about doing an inventory of all of your diverse skills and finding outlets for them. Third, I want you to think about identifying skills that can advance promotions or create these side hustles. All right, that's getting at the what can you be paid for. Number 4, I want you to think about establishing ways to regularly give back. That's going to kind of tap into the what does the world need. Number 5, I want you to determine personal mission and org's mission and connection if you haven't already been able to do that. And then lastly, I would encourage you to connect with others seeking their Ikigai for deeper community. I know that I am more likely to do something when I'm doing it in community because it provides me with accountability, inspiration, support. So let this be a team sport, right? This is something you could even do with your own teams if you lead a team. Now, if you are somebody who is either a senior executive leader that can start ERGs, or you are an ERG leader yourself, or can suggest starting an ERG, here's where ERGs can actually help somebody to stay in the company, despite the fact that maybe their current role doesn't hit all of the touch points, if you will. So one is that you can root the ERG in common interests. So we're often, of course, there are ERGs that are based on like your intersectional identities, whether it's, the Asian ERG or the women ERG. But sometimes it's common interest, right? A running ERG, or even, working parents ERG. Second, so that's getting into like, what do you love? Second is leverage member expertise and skills. Sometimes some people have skills that go beyond what they do in their job. Let's say Bob from accounting is actually also great at Canva and making really cool graphic designs for flyers. Like if he's in the ERG and he can use that skill set, it allows him to tap into like that creative side that he doesn't really get to do in his day-to-day job, and allows him to feel a deeper sense of Ikigai. 3, think about enhanced member capacity to advance. So this is about, what can you be paid for, right? Sometimes our ERGs can serve as a means and an opportunity in a way for our employees to get mentorship, sponsorship, develop, professional development, different skills. And so that is a way to leverage ERGs to, again, connect to deepening somebody's Ikigai. 4, it can provide opportunities for greater service. So again, somebody might be part of the tech team. They're always in-house, they're never community facing, but if there is a community service ERG where they get to go out into the community and feel like, they're gonna clean up this park or paint a wall of a school or whatever the thing is, again, it can deepen that sense of Ikigai and what they're getting out of working for their employer. 5, we can use the ERG again to tie the org and the personal missions and passions together. And then lastly, again, creating a platform for deeper community. So our ERGs can be a place where folks can pursue and experience a deeper sense of Ikigai within the context of the group. And then lastly, I want to touch upon something that I refer to as my flourish flower. I think this is really important for leaders to consider for themselves. I like to do this self-assessment on a quarterly basis, and it's something that teams can do. The flourish flower is based on the Harvard School of Public Health's Flourishing Index, as well as my business partner's Kaisang method. And it's just a more holistic way of defining what wellness and well-being looks like. And so for me, I try to self-assess on a scale of 1 to 10 in each of these areas. So finances, it's the degree to which we feel financially secure. Leisure is the degree to which we're able to integrate that rest and recreation. O for occupation is the degree to which we feel fulfilled from our work. Unity is basically your spiritual health. It's the degree to which you feel connected to source, however you define source. R is for relationships. That's the degree to which you possess close ties with others. I is for impact. That's the degree to which you know and live out your purpose. Sanity is like your mental health. It's the degree to which your mind is cared for, clear, and free. And then lastly, you have your health, which is more about your physical health, the degree to which your body is cared for and functioning. And so this is just 2 examples of what your flourish flower might look like. And what I like about it is it's a visual representation of where you're at. I can see which petals look like they're in full bloom, which petals look like they're dying off the vine. And then I can decide, let me try to identify 1 or 2 areas to focus on in the next quarter to build this, what I like to call your rhythm of resources, routines, and rituals that are going to feed into and nurture these different parts of myself. And so again, being strong in your Ikigai is a way to make this flourish flower feel like you're getting all the petals to be in full bloom. So lastly, just a small takeaway. I like to take aim at my goals every single day. So I start with an affirmation. I make a declaration about myself that roots me in my power and amplifies my belief. An example would be like, I am brilliant beyond all measure. So it's an internal, inward facing thing. Then I go into an intention. So I set a way of being that describes how I want to show up in the world. For example, I will be an opportunity maker. This is external facing. And then lastly, I come up with a milestone, right? Or milestones. This is me establishing something to achieve that day that advances and or accelerates me toward my goals. So it might be like, okay, I want today, if nothing else happens, I want to make sure I finalize the budget for our next event. So if that is my talking points here. I do have a QR code there if you want to complete a brief survey. That's also where you can make sure you get the high level summary of all the talking points in the slides. And if you want to explore other ways that we could partner. So
and actually we've got our own survey as well. So
okay, sorry. So you can even with mine, it's really just more so to make sure if I can get your email to send the information to you. Although selfishly, I also want to know what you got out of it because I am always on a path to continuous improvement. And I know we have just like a few minutes left, but I'm super open to staying on for any additional questions
okay,
that folks might have.
Good to know. So, yeah, real quick, I'm gonna switch screens and finish up here real quick, and then we'll end the recording. And others who want to stay on to ask questions are absolutely welcome to do so. So, with that, we've got our survey up. Thank you so much again, Christina, for that time and a wealth of information. I'm glad that we are providing slides to those who want it because there was a lot of tools there that you had, a few of them that I have not seen before, so I appreciate that. Our next one is with Serena Wong. We will have this up on the web. Actually, I believe you can go to the saceconnect.org/webinar and sign up now. But it is how to build your personal brand. So powerful that you can't be ignored. And following that, we've got an entire slate of programming for 2024 that we're working through our ERG contacts. We'll be publishing them on LinkedIn as well, but you can look forward to more information coming out shortly. So with that, thank you so much for being here. I am going to, end the session, but if you want to stick around, if you have any questions, you are welcome to ask here as soon as I hit stop recording. Okay, thank you everybody, and thanks to Dow again for sponsorship, and definitely thanks to Christina for sharing your wisdom with us, your models with us.
Yes, I definitely want to say thank you to Dow for allowing me to be here today.
Cool. Thanks everyone.